Every time you walk to the trash can instead of flicking a cigarette butt on the ground, you are doing a rep. The same rep. On the same neural circuit that says, not yet, to a craving. You probably do not think of it that way. It is just a cigarette butt. But your prefrontal cortex does not know the difference between a small deliberate choice and a big one. It just knows you overrode an automatic behavior with a conscious decision. And every time you do that, with anything, no matter how small, you strengthen the same pathway that keeps you sober. Recovery is not built in the big moments. It is built in the ones nobody sees. A man told me the hardest part of recovery was not the cravings. It was Saturday. He used to start drinking at noon on Saturdays. That was his structure. His whole weekend revolved around it. Now noon comes and he has nothing. He sits in his living room and the silence is so loud it feels physical. He told me, I do not know what to do with all this time. And the emptiness is louder than any craving. Have you felt that? Not a craving exactly, just a vacuum. Hours stretching out with nothing to fill them. And the longer the quiet lasts, the louder the old program gets. That vacuum is not just uncomfortable, it is neurologically dangerous. And that is what today's episode is about. Not just what to do with your day, why your brain needs you to structure it, and how small, deliberate, repeated choices physically rebuild the circuitry that addiction took apart. Thank you for being here for episode 10. We are building the operating system today. Everything before this was the apps. Now we install the system that runs them. This is Recovery Decoded, episode 10, The Daily Architecture. Your body is healing. Here is the map. You choose the route. Here is what happens in your brain when you have nothing to do. An understimulated brain with depleted dopamine and weak prefrontal control will default to the strongest existing neural pathway to fill the void. For a person in early recovery, the strongest pathway is the substance. Not because you are weak, because your brain built that highway over months or years of repetition. It is the widest, fastest, most automatic road in your neural network. And when there is nothing else competing for attention, your brain takes the highway. This is why weekends, evenings, holidays, and retirement are the highest risk windows. The structure of work or obligations disappears. Nothing replaces it. And the craving program does not need an invitation. It just needs a vacuum. The solution is not willpower. We covered in episode 4 why willpower fails against automatic programs. The solution is architecture. Fill the vacuum with structure that heals you. Make the deliberate choices automatic through repetition. And eventually, the new pathways compete with the old one. Which brings us to habit formation. And I need to be honest about the numbers because there is a lot of bad information out there. You may have heard it takes 21 days to form a habit. That number comes from a plastic surgeon named Maxwell Maltz in 1960, who noticed patients adjusted to their new face in about 3 weeks. That is cosmetic adaptation. That is not habit science. The actual research was published in 2009 by Philippa Lally at University College London. Her team studied 96 people building real daily behaviors. The average time to reach automaticity, where the behavior happens without conscious effort, was 66 days. But the range was enormous. Some people got there in 18 days. Others took 254. The complexity matters. Drinking a glass of water became automatic fast. Doing 50 sit-ups before breakfast took months. And here is the most important finding. Missing a single day did not derail the process. You do not have to be perfect. You have to be consistent. Imperfect consistency beats perfect inconsistency every time. So when I walk you through the daily architecture, know this. The first 2 weeks will feel like manual labor. You are building with your hands. By week 4, it starts getting easier. By week 8 or 9, pieces start running on autopilot. And once something is automatic, it costs 0 willpower. It frees up your prefrontal cortex for the things that actually need your conscious attention. Let me walk you through a day. Not as a list, as a narrative. A day in a life that is being rebuilt, one small choice at a time. Morning. The first 90 minutes set the neurochemical tone for everything that follows. You wake up. Before you reach for your phone, stop. For the first 30 minutes of your day, do not check it. Here is why this matters more than it sounds. Social media, news feeds, texts, notifications, they flood your dopamine system with low-quality micro-rewards before your brain is even fully online. This sets your reward threshold for the day artificially high. Everything after feels less stimulating by comparison. In recovery, your dopamine system is rebuilding. Flooding it with junk input first thing is like pouring sugar into a healing gut. Let it wake up on its own terms. Instead, get sunlight. 10 minutes. Outside if you can. No sunglasses. Morning sunlight triggers a healthy cortisol pulse. Not stress cortisol, but the wake-up signal your body is designed to produce. It also begins the melatonin timer for tonight's sleep. Your brain starts the 14 to 16 hour countdown to sleepiness the moment it registers bright light. And it sensitizes your dopamine receptors. This is the same science from episode 1. Morning light primes the system that makes everything else feel a little more rewarding throughout the day. Move your body before your first meal. Even 5 minutes. A walk to the end of the driveway and back. 5 minutes of stretching. Anything that gets your heart rate slightly elevated. This releases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the single most powerful natural compound for brain repair. BDNF stimulates neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons, and it activates vagal tone from episode 9. 5 minutes. That is all it takes to prime the system. Then eat. And here is where the 3 nutrition rules for recovery come in. I am not giving you a diet plan. I am giving you 3 principles that support your neurochemistry. Rule 1. Protein first. Before caffeine if possible. Protein contains L-tyrosine, which is the amino acid your brain uses to build dopamine. Eggs, Greek yogurt, nuts, meat, beans. Feed the factory before you ask it to produce. Rule 2. Something fermented if you can. Yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi. These contain bacteria that communicate with your brain through the vagus nerve. Remember from episode 9, the gut-brain highway runs on vagal fibers. Feeding your gut is feeding the nerve that regulates your stress response, your mood, and your sleep. Rule 3. Do not skip meals. Ever. Blood sugar crashes trigger the amygdala the same way real danger does. Your brain cannot tell the difference between low blood sugar and a survival threat. Most afternoon cravings are blood sugar crashes disguised as addiction. Eat lunch, real food, protein, complex carbs, something green. This is not about health. This is about preventing a craving at 4 p.m. by eating at noon. Your morning anchor. This is the concept from episode 7. One non-negotiable thing you do every morning that signals to your brain, this is who I am now. It does not have to be big. It has to be consistent. Maybe it is the sunlight. Maybe it is the 5-minute walk. Maybe it is making your bed. Whatever it is the thing you do even on the days when you do not want to do anything. It is the anchor that holds the rest of the architecture in place. Midday. This is the decision fatigue zone. And it is the window most people underestimate. By early afternoon, your prefrontal cortex has been making decisions all morning. Each decision depletes it slightly. By 2 p.m., your willpower tank is lower than it was at 8 a.m. Simultaneously, your cortisol is dropping from its morning peak. Your blood sugar may be dipping if you skipped lunch or ate poorly, and fatigue is accumulating. The window between 2 and 6 p.m. is statistically the highest risk period for relapse. Not because anything bad happens, because your defenses are naturally lower. Run the halt check at midday, before the danger window opens. Am I hungry? Eat something now, not later. Am I angry about something I have not addressed? Name it. Am I lonely? Send a text, make a call. Am I tired? Can I rest for even 15 minutes? Catching these before 2 p.m. is proactive. Catching them at 4 p.m. is reactive. Proactive is easier. And pre-decide the high-risk window. This is the if-then planning from episode 4. Before the afternoon arrives, decide what you will do if a craving hits. Not in the moment, now. If it is 3 p.m. and I feel the pull, then I walk outside for 10 minutes. If I feel restless after work, then I go to a meeting or call someone before I go home. The decision is already made. Your prefrontal cortex does not have to figure it out when it is depleted. The plan just executes. Evening. The wind down determines tomorrow's recovery. Hold on. Yes, I see you. Go lie down. I will take you out when we are done. I'm sorry, my dog again. Okay. The wind down protocol from episode 2 now has a home in your daily structure. Screens off 90 minutes before bed if you can. 60 minutes if you cannot. Temperature down. Body scan. 4-7-8 breathing. These are not new tools. They are now part of a system. Before you sleep, 2 minutes. The daily inventory. What went well today? What was hard? One thing you would do differently tomorrow. That is it. You are not journaling. You are checking in with yourself. This practice is steps 10 through 12 of the 12-step arc, translated into a secular daily habit. Continued self-awareness, reflection, and honesty. Call back to episode 5. You do not have to be in a step-based program to use the principles that make them work. And one more thing. The gratitude bookmark. One thing from today that the version of you from 90 days ago would not have believed. Maybe you laughed. Maybe you kept a promise. Maybe you made it through the afternoon without a craving. Write it down, or just say it to yourself in the dark. This builds the evidence log from episode 8. Over weeks and months, these small acknowledgments accumulate into a record of who you are becoming that shame cannot argue with. Now, the Saturday problem. Unstructured time. The man from the beginning. The one who used to start drinking at noon on Saturdays. His problem was not cravings. It was the vacuum. And filling a vacuum requires more than good intentions. It requires understanding what your brain actually needs. Your brain needs novel stimulation to rebuild dopamine receptors. We covered in episode 1 that dopamine responds most strongly to novelty, new experiences, new environments, new challenges. The same walk in the same park produces less dopamine the 10th time than the first. But a walk in a park you have never been to, that registers as novel. Your brain releases more dopamine for the new than the familiar. This is not a lifestyle suggestion. This is receptor rebuilding science. So the rule for unstructured time is this. Leave the house by 10 a.m. on days off. Do one thing you have not done before each week. It does not have to be dramatic. A new walking route. A recipe you have never tried. A store you have never been in. A meeting at a location you have not visited. Structured novelty. Your brain needs it the way your lungs need air. And the hours between 10 a.m. and noon on a day off are the difference between a day that builds you and a day that tests you. Real talk. I know some of you are listening to this and thinking, that sounds great if you have a fresh start. But I am back in the same house, the same bedroom, the same kitchen where I used. I did not get a new environment. I got the old one with a new expectation. I hear you. And I need to be honest about something that nobody says directly enough. Recovery is harder when your environment has not changed. That is not a personal failing. That is neuroscience. Your hippocampus mapped every surface in that space to the substance. The chair, the drawer, the specific corner of the counter where you poured. Every one of those is a contextual cue that your basal ganglia recognizes and uses to launch the craving program before your conscious brain even registers what happened. People who transition through sober living after treatment have lower relapse rates than those who go directly home. Not because they are stronger, because their hippocampus is not working against them every hour of every day. If sober living or a different living situation is an option for you, even temporarily, the data supports it. If it is not an option, here is what you can change without moving. Rearrange the room where you spent the most time using. Physically move the furniture. This is not decorating. This is breaking contextual cues. Your hippocampus mapped the room in a specific configuration. Change the configuration, and you force your brain to rebuild the map. Change your route. If you drive past the liquor store or the dealer's house every day, take a different road, even if it adds 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes are cheaper than a relapse. Clean deeply. A space that looks and smells different from the space where you used is a space your brain has to reprocess. New candle. Different music. Open a window that was always closed. Each change disrupts one thread of the cue network. And if someone in your household still uses, that is the hardest environmental cue there is. You cannot rearrange a person. That is where the boundary tools from episode 12 become essential. And it is okay to admit that your environment is making recovery harder. That is not an excuse. That is information. And information is power. Here's the compound curve. How daily architecture builds over time. Days 1 through 7. Everything is manual labor. Every choice requires conscious effort. You are tired of thinking about it before the first week is over. This is normal. Your prefrontal cortex is doing all the heavy lifting because the basal ganglia has not encoded anything yet. It feels exhausting because it is. Day 7 through 21. The pathways start forming. Some mornings, the sunlight walk happens without you debating it. Some evenings, the phone goes down at the same time without a fight. These are the first signs of automaticity emerging. They are fragile. Keep going. Days 21 through 66. The shift from effortful to automatic accelerates. More of the architecture runs itself. The morning anchor becomes reflexive. The midday halt check becomes second nature. You have more willpower available for the things that still require it, because the routine is handling the rest. Day 66 and beyond. The architecture runs itself. Not perfectly, not robotically, but the basic structure of your day no longer requires you to build it from scratch every morning. Your basal ganglia has encoded the pattern, and your prefrontal cortex is freed up for higher order things. Creativity, connection, planning, joy. The things that make life worth living. The things addiction stole bandwidth from. And remember, some habits take 18 days. Some take 254. Missing a day does not break it. Perfection is not the standard. Consistency is. Here is your toolkit. Not a list of activities. 3 decisions. My morning anchor is blank. Fill it in. What is the one thing you do every morning, no matter what? My midday if-then is blank. Fill it in. If it is 3 p.m. and I feel the pull, then I do blank. My evening wind down starts at blank. Fill it in. What time do the screens go off? 3 decisions made now, not in the moment. These 3 choices are the bones of your daily architecture. everything else can flex around them. If there is something we have not covered that you need to hear about, how to handle holidays sober, what to do when your job is a trigger, how to fill retirement without a substance, how to parent when your brain is still rebuilding, put it in the comments. This show is built around what you are actually going through, not what we think you should hear. You decide what comes next. And whatever you are facing this week, remember, nobody is making this choice for you. Not a program, not an app, not this podcast. You are choosing to build something new. One small, deliberate choice at a time. That is yours. Nobody gave it to you, and nobody can take it back. The more you understand, the more you own your recovery.